All right, hello. Rugby, Six Nations. England versus France, March the 11th. The game was played. I sat and watched this. It was a. Oh, I was going to say it was a good game. It might not have been such a good game if you were really rooting for England, but being English, I was. But unfortunately, the French gave them a good thrashing, and they put on a real good show. The old French guys. They just absolutely demolished England. Um, and I'm going to go through what was going on with the ritual there, okay? For my American people that don't know what the hell I'm even talking about with rugby, or just know this, it's a better version of American football, okay? I'm a little bit biased because I grew up playing rugby, and um, hell, what was I going to say? Yeah, I've even played it in America, you know. So I've been very fortunate with my to have a really good time playing rugby growing up. You know, I've even played at Twickenham, believe it or not, um, just in a silly little kids pre-warm-up game. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that was part of my life for a very long time, and I've not really got to watch it that much since being in America. Um, it's difficult to get a hold of games on the TV without paying off a small fortune. And I just got lucky this year that my mother-in-law happens to have um, a channel that was covering it, and so I've been watching it. It's been pretty good. Um, anyway, I wanted to show you what was going on with this ritual because initially I was thinking when this game was getting ready, before the game was getting ready to start, I was thinking England ought to win this if we're following along with the pattern that the righteous man, which would be represented with England, because of course England with the St George's Cross is a representation of the earth being balanced between the sun and the moon, okay? Because the St George's Cross is a representation of the blood moon. Um, and that idea is that, that makes England the balanced man, the righteous man. And of course, France has a lot of links to what I call the metaphysical side of reality. We've got the blue color that they play in, and also um, the idea of there's a lot of stuff that comes out of France that's to do with um, like I'm thinking my biggest one is Frank Poole in 2001: A Space Odyssey. He's the guy that dies. Frank is the guy that always has to kind of die, and he's the fictional character that goes along with a lot of people. Like, trying to think of another example, Donnie Darko. There's an example. Frank the Rabbit. He's the he ends up being a real person in the film, but he's Donnie Darko's sort of imaginary guy that comes to him speaking in sort of a dream state, okay, in a hallucination. So he's not really real, okay. And again, so we have Frank. Frank shows up all over the place, okay. Um, so it's pretty interesting. With and of course the metric system. Isn't that funny how that sounds a bit like Matrix? The metric system. Um, of course, we got that from France. Okay, so it's just interesting that France kind of represents the idea of that side of reality, the metaphysical, more spiritual side of reality. And at the moment, what I keep saying is that's the side of reality that's been corrupted. But I'm not totally 100% correct there saying that, because when we have a corruption within our sort of self-image of ourselves, with the ego, um, with our own souls, that goes hand in hand with a physical imbalance as well. So we have the physical matrix around us, okay, um, and that's highly represented with the idea of like a city, a walled-in city, and that being like the matrix. That's where that thing stems from. That's why you see that in so many films where there's a like some kind of complex where people are trapped inside, and there's a boundary around it, and it's almost like they're trapped inside the city. Okay. So anyway, this is what we've got going on here. We've got these two teams. Actually, they was, you know, they're both coming out together, almost like, see, they're almost like wearing they're almost exactly the same. So in one fashion, you could call them the same entity, okay, and then in another fashion, you can say this is the twin of this one, okay. So France is the twin of England, and what we have to remember is when we're talking about the twin symbolism, we're actually talking about one single being, i.e. you and I, ourselves, having a physical being, our physical body, and within that body, if you like, the spiritual side of us as well, which is our, everything about us that makes up our self-image and who we think we are, and our relationship with God and all that stuff, all that spiritual stuff is that fictional side of ourselves, and then we have a physical side to ourselves as well. Okay, so again, we got the kids coming up as well, again with the rebirth thing, and we're coming out of the tunnel, the birthing canal here. It's interesting, we have this cup right here, like the excuse me, like the cup of Christ, like the Holy Grail. Again, that Holy Grail, if you take the two faces and point them into one another, like they do on Back to the Future with Strickland and Marty right at the start, where they have that face-to-face meeting and they form the Holy Grail, that vase or vase if you're English, with the two faces pointing in. Okay, so this thing with Janus, with the faces pointing to the future and to the past, if you flip those faces around and now come to the central balance point, which is the present, and when you get to the present, you get the Holy Grail. Okay, as we get the presents at Christmas. Okay, the present is Jesus Christ. Okay, that's the gift that God gave to us. That is the physical world, or the rules that are all written down that can't be changed. That's our salvation, if you like. But that's for another video. But anyway, so we've got a lot of symbolism going on here, right? But what was interesting was when they were lined up in the tunnel, and I said to my wife, I said, because I was thinking England's going to win this, and they're lined up, and France has got these white tops on, because they're going to take these off in a minute, and they're going to be all blue. France is playing in all blue, but they've got these white tops on. I'm like, this is, I mean, I don't know what they've done in other games, but this is just, I'm thinking, oh, what are they trying to say here by having these tops on? And then if you look at them, I didn't notice this at the time, but they've got some kind of red. I'm guessing this is probably the rooster or something that's red right here, right where the heart would be. And then if you come over to the English side, you can't make it out, but they've got a gold, the rose that's normally red on an English shirt, yeah, is gold on this shirt. So already alarm bells are ringing that they've got the gold on, because if you recall the World Cup, I'm pretty sure, I'm talking about soccer now, football, when France lost that, when I was talking about it, I'm pretty sure that France actually had some gold embellishment on their shirts, whereas Argentina didn't, or at least they had a lot less. Argentina had the yellow rather than gold. So this was interesting, because this gold, again, the heart here, the red rose that would normally be the heart, has now been replaced with a false idol, with a golden false idol. Okay, the gold idol, which is, I'm like, Of course, as soon as they started losing in the game, after the first few minutes, I'm like, England are in trouble here. They're gonna get tanned on this one. And again, so what I think we've got going on here is, as they're coming out the tunnel being reborn, we've got two different scenarios that could happen in the world, right? Because I've talked about us, as we're trying to come out of the matrix, we have to let go of these false ideas about ourselves, right? And I was saying, that's more than likely is what the sacrificial death has to be. It's getting rid of that false image of ourselves, okay? But that runs both ways, because anytime there's a fictional false image of ourselves, there's also all the physical stuff that goes along with that, okay, in our lives. All the crazy things that we do, all the crap that we keep buying from China. I got piles of stuff in the house that we don't really need, but it's just consumerism for the sake of consumerism. It's, we overconsume way too much stuff, okay, and I'm bad at it, and that goes for, it's just the lifestyle in general. And so if you're going to get rid of the false ego and all that stuff, you've got to get rid of all the crud that goes along with that, which is all the physical version of the matrix. So I think, and again, actually, what I'll say before we get onto this a little bit deeper is that there's two ways that this sort of awakening that everybody's going through right now can happen, okay? And it is either you have a spiritual awakening, okay, where what I'm saying by that is you have a realization of what the world is, this matrix that's around us. You have a realization of like, oh, crud, every time I go and buy a Big Mac, I'm screwing this guy further down the the totem pole that's only getting paid so much an hour to do his job, whereas I'm earning X, Y, or Z for my job. I'm happy to go and trade my time for this guy lower down the. So what I'm saying is the guy lower down the totem pole is getting screwed at the end of the day. I'm basically ripping him off. I know that'll sound strange to some people, but that's essentially what happens all the time. It's a little more complicated than that, but the problem that we have is when you have a government that forces people into paying taxes, okay, and with the threat of harm to an individual if they don't, okay, then we've got a problem. Because when people are coerced into doing things lower down the chain, what the problem is then wealth is extracted by anybody else that's further up the chain, okay? So unless you're right at the very bottom of that chain, it's very difficult for you to engage in the matrix without ripping somebody off, okay? That's just the way it is, okay? And that's just something we've got to live with and try to work on to make that situation better, to make it more fair for everybody. But anyway, where was I going with this? But what I'm saying is, you have that spiritual awakening where you realize what the problem is with the matrix. But what you have to then do is then you have to, when you have that awakening there on the spiritual side, then how that has to somehow affect the physical side, because those two things are mirrors of one another. So in order for that thing to progress, you have to start removing the matrix out of your life. That's that physical death of the matrix now. Okay, so you've already had the fictional death of it. You've already figured out what's wrong with the world, and now you have to have the physical death. Okay, the physical death and rebirth. So you've got to strip out all that crud, get rid of it all. Otherwise, you're just going to end up in staying where you are in the matrix, and you're just going to end up unhappy, and you're just going to end up being that same individual that's ripping everybody off, and that's not really where I want to be. So of course I'm trying to work on that myself, but it's super difficult. But anyway, the other option to that is that you remove the physical stuff first, i.e. the matrix, you're removed from the matrix, or the matrix is removed from you, the physical portion of it. So I would be thinking something like Tom Hanks on Castaway, where he doesn't have any matrix around him. He basically has a bit of a breakdown, but at the end of the day, what he really has is a spiritual, some kind of spiritual awakening out of the matrix. So that is the physical removal of that stuff will result in a spiritual awakening the other way. So if what I'm saying is, if one thing happens on one side, then you're going to have the equal and opposite thing happen on the other side. There's a point to what I'm saying here, okay? Because what goes on in this game is this incredible record-breaking defeat that England receive is, let me go to it now so you can see the score, 10-53. Okay, I don't want to go too much into breaking down the actual, like, who scored what. I'm just looking at the overall score here, and this huge beating that England took. And there's a reason why the man that's wearing the I want to go back to the reason why the man that is wearing the false idol here, which is the physical man here, is going to take a beating. He's going to take a beating from the spiritual guy, because the spiritual guy here has the white shirt on. This is representing the idea that the dove from above has returned. We have the red on the heart here, i.e. at the core now, we have a representation. The red heart, the living heart, is a representation of the physical set of rules that are in the world again. We're drawing from the living world. Okay, so what we're saying here is, with the heart, is that heart represents a return back to the true physical world. And in the true physical world, all the rules are already written down by God. Okay, and they can't be changed. They're immutable. They are set in stone. This is why the commandments are said to be set in stone, because the rules that are embedded in nature can't be changed. They're set in stone. They're in the physical world. That's what the stone is. It's the physical world. Okay, so this heart, this red heart here, is a representation of that balance. Okay, and that is a representation of the physical world, just as the phallus symbol is a representation of the physical man. Physical mankind, that is. Okay, so we've got that going on. We've got the dove from above, the pure white of the dove that is right here, on the fictional side of man now. Okay, so again, that's the Holy Spirit returning. Pentecost. Okay, and what else do I want to say about this? If you take just liquid water, okay, or you could take the gaseous version as well. If we look up to the sky, the atmosphere is blue, water is blue, but when it freezes, what's interesting, and I'm thinking about a certain substance here, we got this pure white. Okay, I'm thinking about snow. I'm thinking there's a couple of things that go on with water when it freezes. Number one, it becomes less dense. It actually becomes lighter. Okay, at least lighter. At least frozen water is lighter than liquid water. Okay, and of course, liquid water is our sort of main reference for the fictional system. Like the merchant system. Okay, Admiralty law, all that kind of stuff. But this white, the ice floats. Okay, it becomes less dense. So usually the good stuff always rises to the surface. Just think about milk and cream. Okay, the cream always rises to the surface, and the detritus sinks. Okay, so the junk at the bottom, all the crud, that goes to the bottom, whereas the good stuff goes to the surface. Now this is important because excuse me, this is important because, you know, this is elevated. You know, the white is naturally rising up. Yeah, up's good, down's bad. Okay, it's all simple ideas, right? But again, if you go down into the ocean, of course it gets darker. The further you come to the surface, the lighter it gets. I mean, it's all simple um, symbols here, or simple ideas. Okay. Again, snow, super light. Okay, super floaty. Okay. Again, this idea of um, the release of dead weight. I don't know, but this idea of purity, you know, rising up above everything else. Okay, so this is why white is super. The dove from above is referenced like this. Okay, and this is what's going on here. This is like the spiritual awakening right here that's happened already with this. Both of these two teams is forming one single entity here, man. Okay, and this man here has had, or is having, the spiritual awakening here. Okay, and what has to happen is the physical side of that man now has to also endure a physical kind of death, which is the removal of the matrix, the physical matrix around himself. That's the thing that has to die. The physical matrix has to die. Okay, so this is why I believe England get this thrashing in this game. Okay, because they are playing the role here of that man that has not let go of the physical side of the matrix yet. Okay, still got that gold false idol here. Okay, and it's the spirit. This is the return of the spirit here, you know, and the spirit is going to, you know, this thing has to die, and so I think it might be interesting to see what this next game happens with England versus Ireland, which happens to be the day after St. Patrick's Day. It happens to be on the 18th. So you have that 318 number that's also in the chart, and we're going to go do some numbers in the chart in a minute. And of course the 713 number, which is St. Patrick's Day as well, and this idea of driving the snakes out of Ireland. So I don't know how the game is really going to go with England versus Ireland, but it is interesting that England have had this huge thrashing now, and boy, I don't know. I was thinking Ireland was going to wipe the floor with England, but now I don't know. It would be really weird if England somehow won against Ireland. I don't know. Just weird. Anyway, I'll just have to wait and see what happens there on that one. But this is what's going on for me. This is what is going on. So let's go look at some of the numbers with this thrashing. Okay, and we're going to go to this chart, which for new people, just go back in my back catalogue and find this video here, the chart that predicts the future explained. Okay, this will give you some background on this. This is a chart of Fibonacci type numbers that are all encode the golden ratio. Okay, so these are numbers that we'll find in nature quite a bit. Okay, because the golden ratio is, you know, present through the whole of nature. If you start sort of dissecting stuff and counting bits and bobs of leaves on plants and etc., this is the code that runs through nature. Okay, and it's all about balance in nature. So these are balancing numbers, and at the center of our little chart are these important numbers here. Okay, this is our central point right here, this midpoint right here. So these are the numbers that we're kind of working towards when we're looking at things that are going on in the world, and for ourselves as well. If we want to be balanced men, I don't say you have to work towards these numbers, but I don't know the best way to describe it really. It's just if you're looking at a particular situation, you know, the encoding around that situation we can draw some conclusions from this table, okay, of what's going on. So again, there's certain patterns in this table, and one of the first two patterns, of course, are these two patterns, which is the Twin Towers, okay, the number 11, okay, and these are picked out at the center of the table, where again this is the balance point of the whole table, and this 11 is right at the center here, okay, these two columns that we can call the Twin Towers, okay. But what we've got going on is we can put other shapes and ideas in here, but there's a set of shape. There's one set of shape here, a cross that I call the cross of. This is the Great Scott. Okay, this is the cross of St Andrew. Okay, and there's an awful lot of encoded stuff here with this cross. Too much to go into with this video, and if you've seen my other videos, then you'll know what's going on here with this thing. But what is interesting about this is if we look at, let's just use this side here, this 33, yeah, 33 is all to do with resurrection, okay. It's when Jesus dies and he is resurrected, okay. And so we're concerned with what's going across here right now, okay, because what we've got going on there with that England game is another in fact everything's a resurrection ritual, but this is what's going on, okay. So we're concerned with coming across here. Well, let's look down here at this end of the cross. In fact, if I draw it just my line just below those numbers, you can see the numbers now, okay. Now what I've explained before is that, again, as we have two sides of reality, we have a metaphysical side and a physical side, and between those two sides is a mirror, okay, and that mirror is actually the Vesica Piscis, okay. That's that portal between two different realms, okay. And so what we have with these last two numbers in here, okay, because we've got 4 legs going on here, okay, and I've already talked about this leg and this leg, and we've had a few references to this leg already, but this is just another reference to this leg, okay, that's opposite the 33 here. These two numbers are mirrors of one another, okay. 50, if we do 25 like this, okay, 25, what am I on about, 25, 23 like this, okay, and then we put a mirror line here and we do another 3 here, and then look, okay, those two numbers are mirrors of one another. So this is important with this idea of mirroring reality. Just another thing while I'm on the topic here, if we total up across here to this, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5, this is 15, okay, and if we add on the 6, this is 21, okay. So we have more mirroring going on with this 2 and this 5. This is 52 or 25. We've got this mirroring going on. So this mirror idea is important because the mirror is essentially the balance point between the two sides of reality. And of course we've got the physical side right here with the 23, and we've got the metaphysical with the 53. Yeah, the 5 is super connected to the metaphysical, okay. And again, this is the matrix system. Half of 10, which is the matrix system, is 5, and half of our other way of measuring, which is imperial, okay, is 12 feet in an inch, 12 inches in a foot, that kind of idea. Again, half of that is 6, okay. So the physical world is measured in body parts, if you like, with feet and inches, and the metaphysical world, i.e., like science, for instance, or mathematics, takes a lot of use of the decimal system. That's more of a fictional system, okay. So what do I want to say? And again, of course, the common thing with water is the boiling point, 100 degrees Celsius or centigrade or whatever you want to call that. But this is interesting how that fits in with water, and also with the 212 with the Fahrenheit system. Okay, so I mean, it just all, it just all kind of fits together. But anyway, get back to this, Dan. This is our score right here. This is our 53 and our 1. If you know how this cross works, we're borrowing every time we do this thing. We tend to borrow this 1 out of the middle to go with these numbers. Okay, and what is interesting about these two sets of numbers here, let's get rid of this junk off of here so I can explain the 23 and the 53 a little bit more, because this is, again, this ties right back into rebirth again with Jesus. Because what we're doing every time we do this, these number jumps that are in here, there's several number jumps, okay, and what we're doing is we're going to the center of that cross, which is between those two, between the 11 there. So this 1 is getting put with these numbers, like here's 187, okay, and here is 197 here, and those are our two number jumps from 2001, September the 11th, 2001, and this one takes us to the 29th of January, and this one takes us to May the 9th. Okay, so what's interesting about that is May the 9th actually shows up right here, and underneath is St. Patrick's Day right here. Okay, 317, just read it backwards, and 47 is right here, and 47, let me get rid of some of this now. By the way, that number jump is, did I say this? 7,810 days to get to here, and 7,910 days to get to 59. Okay, or the 9th of May, which is the 129th day of the year. Anyway, right, let's get off of this. Okay, so there's some important dates that are popping up, which is especially this date here. Okay, and this date here again is a mirror reflection of this number here. This number here is super important. Okay, there's a reason why Keanu Reeves, with his 2nd of September birthday, is used in The Matrix, John Wick, all that kind of stuff. You know, this 29 date is being heavily encoded with Keanu. Okay, and again, it's a mirror of this number here. This is our, where we get to this year right here. So I think we'll see something interesting on St. Patrick's Day, maybe the 7th of April might be something interesting to tie back into this day here. Okay, and this is the day that I'm reckoning Hoover Dam will have something occur at it. Okay, but I'm all over the place with this. But this 1 gets shared out, and what I have here with the 331, again, the number 3 is C, and the number 13, we're reading this backwards here, actually we need to read it first, which is 13, is M. So we have the MC here, Muck, which is Mary and Christ rejoined back together. This is the importance of all these Mac references, I think. The Big Mac is going to return, okay, but will the Whopper have something to do with it before that point? Might do, okay, and if you know what I'm talking about with the Whopper. Okay, here we go. So we have these numbers left, okay, and we're going to put that 1, and these are mirror numbers, so we're just going to stick that 1 in there, and I'm going to put it in the middle, and there's a reason why I'm going to choose the middle of the 23, or the 5 would be 513. Okay, because this number that's in the dollar bill is one of those important dates. Okay, the 13th of February. Okay, again, just note that the 47 is either side of this set of numbers here, and the 29 is the perfect combination of these two numbers here. So the 29 is super important. It's in the 7 column. Yeah. Tower 7. If you go and look at all the information on Tower 7, you will see 29 popping up. You will see 50. You will see all these numbers popping up. Okay. Super important. And I think you'll see the 59 popping up as well. Excuse me one more time. Let's go to the reason why this should have this. This is what we're dealing with here. 5. In fact, I could do with a bit more room to write this down, because actually what I need to do is write it like I did before, which is the 2, 1, 3. And again, these numbers here are encoded in Elvis as well. You have to go back and watch one of my Elvis decode videos. Okay. But there's a super interesting connection between these two things again. Okay. And again, this blooming 25 mirrored again, right? Okay, well, it's the same what I've been going on about, right? So, if we start on this day here, the 13th of February, right? And then we add, and we take a total for this day, 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 and this day, up to the 10th column here, because 10 is completion. Okay, when the 1 is at the Vesica Pisces. Okay, it's the beginning and the end. If we add these numbers up right here, total those together, guess what it's going to give us? Okay, I'll give you one. Well, actually, I could give you two guesses. It's actually going to give us 315. 315. Well, that's okay. That's interesting, Dan. Okay, you've got 213, and then a total of 315. And again, if we look at the 213 here, and then we have 315 here. Again, we've got the 33 at the center, because the center balance point, you could imagine a mirror there as well. We'll have the 33 at the center of those two numbers as well. Okay. Now, that's a reason why we should maybe use the 315 as well as a number. Okay. There's a reason for having that number flipped, if you like reversed, like a mirror. So, okay, so what, Dan? Well, I'll tell you what's interesting. If we go from this day here, and we go 315 days, okay, from this day, it's going to take us to this day here. This is something I've said loads of times before. It takes us to Christmas, okay, when the 1, Christmas, Christmas, maybe I shouldn't draw it like that, maybe it should be drawn like this. When the 1 is reborn, okay? So these numbers, these numbers here are just insane, really, when you think about it. That they just happen to be here in the table, and that they just happen to be reflections of one another, and that 200, if you go from the 13th of February, this is a date that's in the dollar bill, and you do a 315-day jump, which happens to be the total of all of these numbers here together, which is the other part of the 10 cycle here, okay, it just happens to take you to Christmas. I mean, that is in itself pretty mind-blowing. It's just absolutely insane, really. I don't want more to say about it, but that is what we're dealing with. Again, it's just more rebirth stuff. Maybe I should call it quits on the video there, because this is pretty late and I need to go to bed. So I think I will leave it there. But you can see, there's that leg that we're dealing with. We just had Madonna's. There's Madonna in here in a different guise right here. The 168, the 16th of August. Her brother, who is born on the 3rd of May, we just had that death, and I did a video on that. Okay, so we're starting to, or at least I'm starting to see more stuff that ties in with this here. Okay, which is again interesting because we also had the I believe we had the Queen's, like in the jump video for Madonna, we had the Queen's death tying in alongside this thing as well. With the, if we rotate this number, the 9th of the 8th of September, sorry, repeated again over here, and Prince Charles turning into King Charles at the age of 73. Okay, again this number flipped again. So this is important with this number here, coming parallel with this sort of thing. It's just interesting. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there. I think I've explained everything I want to know, or wanted to explain. But this number, this 29 number, we got the 129 on this leg here, and then the 129th day of the year on this leg. And again, what is interesting is, we've got this set of numbers that we're trying to get back to here. Okay, this is home right here at the center of the table, and this represents those two numbers perfectly, again, in the 7 column. And we have another event here potentially, and could 9/11 also be a reference to tying these two things together? Okay, look what we've got here. Okay, 9/11. So I don't know. I know this much. Every time I try to sort of predict something, it doesn't really happen the way I'm thinking it. But after the event, it's easy to see how the numbers all tied together. But it's kind of difficult before the event to see if something's going to tie together. And I keep getting little there's little connections to the stuff that I keep talking about. Like I did the Billy Idol thing with the oh, that's what I forgot to mention as well, is that the game was played, before I get onto this Billy Idol thing, the game was played on 3/11, and that is, again, this thing here. The 254th day of the year, 9/11. It's a reference, if we use it like a times table chart now. This takes us to 9/11, the 254th day of the year. Okay, so again, I don't know, but is this, what kind of connection do we have here back to this point here via this point here? Okay, I don't know. This point here, what I'm saying is this point here, which would be the balance point, is this number basically. Okay, and this is the mirror of it right here. And look, 9/11 here. So I don't know. Interesting. Interesting with that tie back with the date that it was played on. Okay, the game was played on, and the reference back to 9/11 again. Because although, I will just say one thing, although that thing came down on the 254th day of the year, okay, that's the very same thing that's got to be resurrected. Those two towers in an individual format. I don't know. Somebody could argue that I think those two things have got to stay separated though, somewhat. They've got to be close enough together, like they're mirrors of one another. But there has to be separation where they're not, and one's not controlling the other one. That's the important thing to remember. Okay, and the One World Trade Center thing that's going on there now, it kind of reminds me of Bindweed. Almost too much entanglement there, Boy, I'm going to leave it there for the video. I think I've waffled on enough. Okay, there's some interesting patterns, like I said, and yeah, let's just leave it there. I will say this much. Oh, that's what I was going to talk about as well, the Billy Idol thing. Let me just mention the Billy Idol thing, because I was saying about Billy Idol, and I was picking out the 9th of March, I think, and maybe the 10th as well, because what we were looking at was this jump between Billy Idol's um, birthday, which is, again, the Great Scott right here, this cross, I believe is referenced in the dollar bill, okay? And it's a reference to a fold that ends up making the Greek symbol lambda, okay? And the Greek symbol lambda is kind of like, what is it? It's kind of like this, okay? It's kind of like an A shape with a little thing on the top. And that occurs in the dollar bill, okay? That symbol, if you follow a couple of the fold markers that are in the dollar bill, that symbol, you can make that lambda symbol, and that lambda symbol is the 11th letter of the Greek alphabet with a numerical value of 30. So this is the 1130 that's in the dollar bill. This is Billy Idol's birthday. Okay. What's important about that is Billy Idol is a reference to the, just with the name, the way Billy Idol's name works is the $1 idol, and it's the bill, Billy, okay? So Billy has a super interesting tie to the dollar bill. His birthday is in the dollar bill, and it's a proper fold in the dollar bill. It's not a made up thing. There's fold markers in there. Go watch some of my old dollar bill decode stuff. So he has this immense tie to the dollar bill. And what do we see happen on 3.9 or 3.10 was these bank collapses, okay, that started happening. They had a bank run on 3.9, which led to, I think there were people that didn't get paid or something somewhere in Silicon Valley because the bank couldn't pay them on 3.9, and I think the next day they shut the bank down. Okay, the FDIC came in and did something, if I'm saying all this right. I think that's how it happened. I remember I saw something on 3.9 anyway about it, and I think Zach's got a video that references 3.9, Zach on Gematria Effect News. So again, it's super significant, this link with Billy Idol, the $1 bill, which is money, okay, and money is what is in the bank. Okay, so these bank collapses, and the idea of Billy Idol maybe, something to do with Billy Idol on 3.9 or 3.10 was just, that was nuts for me, that connection. I know it sounds like a stretch for other people out there. If somebody was just listening to this video now and be like, really, Dan, you're going to say something that's going to happen, something is going to occur with Billy Idol and on maybe 3.9 or 3.10 because this is 100 days from his birthday, okay, and 101 days, which is Hoover Dam Gematria here, 101, okay. This is the 1010 tenet of the Sata table, 101, okay, 1010. So again, and the O here, which is the Vesica Pisces, is also this thing, yeah, where you have the phallus and the womb, or the upward arrow and the downward arrow of man and the feminine side of reality coming together, and they form the X. X marks the spot, okay. So 101 is super important, and we've got these bank collapses coming and happening, and this is the day the bank shut down, 3.10. And I've mentioned this in a comment to who was it, to Decoder Ring, because he had said about these three banks that did occur might as well just put it in here. The 3 banks that did collapse all had the SI at the start of them. The Silicon Valley Bank, the Silvergate, and the whatever the other one was. Can't remember. Was it Signature or something? And they all had the SI. And SI in, I think it was the reverse reduction, is a 17. And we had this times 3. So he was saying this is a 3 times 17 here. Or this 317, again, St. Patrick's Day. Or you could look at it like this. It's referencing this 59 that's right above it. Okay. So again, super duper interesting here. Okay. What we also have to remember is this is also referencing this here as well, coming down the column with the 713, which again, the next number on is this 29. These two numbers here are the mirrors of one another. This 59 and this 29, and we have a 73 pointing up and a 713 pointing down at these numbers. So it's just nuts. 3 SI banks, okay, with the link to the dollar bill with Billy Idol coming from this date here, the birthday of the dollar bill, to the death date where the bank collapses. Okay, does this stuff make sense now? I know that's a whole bunch of scribble there, and this is off the back of maybe I have to call this video like the Bank of England or something. I don't know, but oh god, I can't delete any more of that. I think that was what I wanted to say about that. I've lost my train of thought there, but he was saying about the SI. The other interesting thing about S and I is 19 and 9 is SI, and that takes us over here as well. This 199, the 199th day of the year, is this day here as well, which is interesting. It's the 18th of July. Okay, so that's also interesting. And that's also the Queen's funeral here as well. And it's also another reference back to this thing where we're trying to get back to this 11. So again, just interesting stuff with these banks. You know, I know that's a stretch to get to Billy Idol from my Billy Idol video and saying something with Billy Idol is going to happen. But, you know, we've got to remember that there's a super significance with Billy Idol in the dollar bill and the idea of 100-day jump, and the metric system again with the 100, you know, everything divided into tens. So this is, again, it's just super duper important. I'm guessing, I don't know if this is maybe what happened or not, but I'm wondering if somebody can put this in the comments, because surely somebody knows, and I may have even talked about this before, but it may be that America have the dollar system in the way it is because everything else in America is still blooming on old English stuff with feet and inches and everything. But it may be, imagine my surprise when I bought rolls of barbed wire and they're still on rods. Rods, blooming hell. What was I going to say? Getting sidetracked again. But I think maybe the reason why the dollar is the way it is with 100, with the kind of decimalization of it, might be something to do with France as well. That might be an idea that came out of France. And of course Franklin, again with the franc, and Benjamin Franklin being over in Paris for all that stuff as well. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm waffling now. I'm going to leave it there. I think that's pretty interesting. If you can make sense of all my scribbliness, we're definitely, you know, this 713. Keep your eyes open for St. Patrick's Day and for the 29s showing up, and maybe even the 59s showing up on St. Patrick's Day. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe a game of rugby with England versus Ireland. Maybe we'll have a 29 reference. Maybe we'll have a 59 reference in the score. Maybe we'll have some kind of 47 reference in the score. I don't know. Maybe a 37 and a... We've already had the 53 reference. I don't know. I'm going to leave it there. This is probably way too long, this video. Alright, thanks for watching. And I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers, bye.